Hey there, welcome back to another video. In this one, I'm gonna give a cost breakdown and make this like a buyer's guide for home shop dust collection. So stick around and I'll show you all that I learned as I went through this process, and maybe you can pick up a couple of things also. First off, I recently put out a video about how I did all of this dust collection. It's more of a tutorial of exactly how to put it all up. So if you want to see that, click here. I'll put a link and down below. From a high level, I ended up going with 6-inch pipe. And the reason I did that is kind of twofold. One was scarcity. In my area, I was having a hard time sourcing 8-inch pipe, which is what the inlet is on my dust collector. And the second reason is cost. It was pretty costly. I'll get into a little bit more about that on the next steps, but the 8-inch was considerably more expensive than the 6-inch. So that's what I went with. Let's talk about the cost. To start off, the 8-inch pipe that I was originally trying to source was very expensive. One 45-degree elbow fitting was about $85, and one 20-foot section of the 8-inch pipe was over $180. That's really high. So basically the run coming out of my dust collector, turning 45 degrees up toward the ceiling, running up about 7 or 8 feet, because I would have to buy the whole section of pipe, and then one more elbow to get it to level out, would have been over $400. I just couldn't swing that right now. So I ended up going the route of the 6-inch. Most of the 6-inch fittings were still expensive when you compared them to the 4-inch ones, but it was a reasonable enough range that that's what I went with. The pipes that I bought came in 10-foot sections, and a 10-foot section was roughly $35. So the 45-degree elbow fittings in the 6-inch were about $11. Not too bad. The Y fittings where it branches off, those were about $25 in the 6-inch. That's a good bit higher. And then the one single 22.5 degree elbow fitting that I used to get around the mini split was about $15. The reducer fittings from the 6-inch down to the 4-inch were about $15 a piece. And then we move on to the 4-inch pipes. One 10-foot section of the 4-inch pipe is about $12. About a third the cost of what the 6-inch pipe is. The 4-inch Y fittings were about $7, and then each of the elbows, the 22.5 degree and the 45 degree, were only about $2 a piece. So considerable difference in price, as you can see. I ended up being able to use the flanged end of the actual pipe. Each 10-foot section has a flanged end on it, so you don't have to use a coupler if you're joining two of those long pipes together. So I ended up not using a regular coupler because of those flanged ends. I was able to kind of cut those and use them. Let's go over some of the auxiliary items that you need to do this and the cost of those. Some of those things would be the foil tape, the blast gates, the flexible hose that you connect each tool to your actual system with. And the last thing is the galvanized pipe strapping. So to start with that one, I ended up buying a 100-foot roll of the stuff. It was really overkill for the amount that I used. I probably could have gotten away with the 25-foot roll, which was only about $5.50. The one I bought, I think, was $13, so not a lot wasted. And that way, if I do make any changes in the future, I've got that and I can use it. The flexible hose, I'll put a link obviously to all of this stuff down below, but the flexible hose that I used, I think I bought 50 total feet of it, and then I just cut apart with a utility knife and some wire cutters, because it's got a wire running through the whole thing, for each section that I needed. And I've been using that in multiple iterations in my shop, so it works really well. The foil tape, one roll of it, I probably used a half a roll, and it was $15 total. I used the 3M tape that said it was a little bit flexible, because I've heard good things about that and it was recommended to me. I have so far had really good use with that. And the blast gates that I used were 4-inch, because that's just the setup that I was using. These are the metal blast gates that pretty much clean themselves out as you open them. And I like them. I had some plastic ones before this, kind of in another iteration of my shop, and I didn't care for those. They're not very expensive, these metal ones. They're only about $15, so I would recommend picking these up. I might end up having to put in a blast gate or two up in the 6-inch section to kind of block off a whole section of the pipe. And if I do that, I'll have to step up a little bit more, but they are available in a 6-inch as well. Next up, I'm going to touch briefly on the dust collector that I have. It's a Laguna P-Flux 3. It's a 3 horsepower, 2-stage unit that has the cyclone that siphons off most of the material with a HEPA filter in the back that collects the fine stuff so it doesn't get out in the air, and that's not what I'm breathing. This was kind of the impetus for me doing the rest of this piping. I was at first just going to kind of connect some flexible hoses to different things because this thing can handle it. But I finally decided the best use of this nice machine was to actually hard pipe everything and make the most use out of it. So finally, I just wanted to tell you a couple of things that I would change already. I've used this system now for a couple of weeks, and there are a couple of tweaks I want to make. I'm probably going to end up adding some more of these blast gates like I mentioned earlier. I already had 3 of these, and so I placed them kind of on 3 main trunks. I do need some more ways to block off these separate Ys. I just feel like the system's probably powerful enough, but I get more use out of my drum sander, for instance, when it's even more powerful. So I might end up putting some blast gates down here on a couple of these sections. And then, like I mentioned, I might end up grabbing a 6-inch blast gate to put up here if I wanted to block off that entire section of pipe. It would be an easy way to not have to go finagle with a bunch of different blast gates, just reach up and pull one. Whenever you get a new tool, you have to kind of change your habits, and I've got to learn better how to watch for when that dust collector is full. It has a light that comes on when the drum is full or the HEPA filter is full, but you have to be watching for it. So maybe I need to install an alarm or something, but I was just planing away the other night thinking I could plane all night long and not ever empty that thing, and I overran it so much, clogged up the filter canister and everything, and it was a big mess. So that's definitely something I'm gonna have to watch out for. Thanks so much for checking out this video. I hope it was a good guide for you. I wanted it to serve as a nice buyer's guide for a home shop and dust collection. If you have any other questions that I didn't cover, please leave them down below. I'll be glad to answer those. I reply to all of my comments, and I'll have links below to all of the stuff that I use that I'm able to link so that you can find exactly what you're looking for. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.